let's talk about some regions, because I think, you got your start in North America, demand response. North America has been the leader, and I would say still is the leader. But let's talk about Japan, because Japan is a really interesting market. And I have to admit, the more you research about Japan, it's got a lot of quirks. The things that stick out is, one, it's a grid that has two different frequencies. We were talking about frequency,
exactly right.
but part of it was built by the Germans, part of it by the Americans, and then there's a literally kind of a line that divides the two. Now, how does that impact maybe a vendor like you when you look at that market? Is that an opportunity, or is that an obstacle, or is it a little bit of both?
We're not really very sensitive to that in our
Right.
business. Because we're trying to use things for different parts of the power system at different times.
Right.
We don't typically have to cross over that boundary, so to speak.
Right.
But you're right. The more you dig into Japan, the more you realize there's a very, very complex power system at play there.
Right.
And of course, they're coming off the heels of decommissioning nuclear and after the Fukushima disaster, and really massive transformation that's occurring in the Japanese market.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing when I did some research working with you, was that also there's a lot of islands. I forgot how many islands there are in Japan, but it's literally thousands. But there's the big ones, and they're just interconnected with the next island. And so you don't really have a national wholesale market. First of all, you have the frequency division, and then you have these sort of things. So in some ways, that creates up little smaller balancing areas, which then each one of those, I suppose you could say, would be a VPP market.
That's right. That's exactly how we think about it, is you want to be able to handle things kind of at that somewhat localized level.
Right.
Localized zones, if you will, that are kind of then interconnected.
Okay.
One could affect the other because of their connectedness.
Right.
But that's how we think about it, is how you break those VPPs down, and that's again part of what we bring from a software platform perspective.
And then I guess the last thing that struck me about Japan is they're going through radical sort of deregulation for residents. They had a lot of feed-in tariffs. People are coming off those feed-in tariffs. They want to get more value from the rooftop solar PV. There's going to be incentives to add batteries, and then incentives to be part of a VPP. But at the same time, they're actually talking about bringing back the nuclear fleet. They've got a lot of centralized fossil. Japan has always imported. I think they're number one with LNG. So in my mind, it's kind of a schizophrenic. It's kind of like going both ways at once, although recently they announced that 3 nuclear reactors were not going to come back online. So it does seem like it's tilting, like the rest of the world, to DER.
Yeah, I think that from our perspective, and by the way, don't forget, it's a growing economy. So they're continuing to fuel their economy all at the same time.
Right.
And so we see, I think Japan is certainly in this area where there's a lot going on and a lot of transformation going. The ones that we pay attention to are the wholesale markets that are coming to bear. We're going to see things that are like a demand response market and a frequency market emerge here pretty soon in the next 12 to 18 months, hopefully.
Right.
And then as you touched on it around solar and net metering, we're going to see some of the net metering tariffs fall away in Japan, and that's going to incentivize batteries. That's going to incentivize a really different world at the residential level, which of course we're going to see in other parts of the country. But Japan certainly is a emerging market for distributed energy.